Hello, everyone. Welcome. I know you're still getting connected to your sound, but if you are here to learn about graduate school application process with the ETS team, you are in the right spot. I don't know about you, but sometimes I need that confirmation in my day to know that I'm in the right meeting at the right time. So we're going to give it just a moment here, and we'll get going and let everybody join in with their sound. We are going to ask if you all just keep your microphones muted until you need to ask a question, but feel free to do that, and Julie will lead us through some more of the housekeeping things. But thanks so much for joining. My name is Susan, and I work full-time with the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I work from the Kansas City area, and I'm excited for you all to be here tonight. I have just a couple of quick announcements, and then I'm going to pass it over to our presenter team and let them get you going. But I wanted to share with you, so this is kind of a new program that we're doing. We're calling it the Ship Passport to Graduate School. So it's a series of events, and this is the very first one. So thanks for our ETS team for being willing to be guinea pigs with us in this venture. But really what this is designed to do is to help people who are either thinking about grad school, I'm not sure if I'm going to do grad school, or maybe you're in the application process, or maybe you have a family member or a friend, someone that you're supporting that's going through this process that you just want to collect the information for to help them. But this is the first one. We'll do another one in March, just about a month from today on March the 5th. And we'll be talking about how to navigate finding advisors and what does that relationship look like. The QR code is there for you to RSVP for that event. So feel free to take a screenshot really quick and take that RSVP. And we'll do that event on March the 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then just as a reminder, so this is kind of a two-part program, right? So the Passport series is here's information to help you prep, get ready. And then we also have the program called Future Grads Mentorship. And we've been doing this program for just about 2 years now. And really what this focuses on is just trying to build that pipeline, right, of more Hispanic Latinx students in the graduate school pipeline. We do an application process because it is space limited based on the number of mentors that we have available. So be watching the Ship Nation newsletter and your email and our social media. In the summer, we'll start promoting it. We'll open the applications in mid to late summer, and then do the acceptances and the connections, because they're actually one-on-one connections, will go live in August, and they'll go through the month of November. And you'll have a one-on-one mentor, somebody who has also successfully gone through the graduate school application process themselves. It could be a current graduate student, it could be a faculty member, it could be one of our industry partners who's done graduate school, but someone who has been through that process themselves to help you one-on-one go through that application process. So that's another piece of this two-part puzzle of the Passport series of information, and then also the support of a mentor. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton over to our ETS team and let them get us started.
Great. Susan, thank you so much. Thank you to you and your colleagues at SHPE for having us here for this webinar. We are thrilled and honored to be the very first in the series. I wanted to also welcome everyone who's joined us to the future grad students out there, mentees, mentors, and everyone who's with us. Thanks for being here for this webinar, which is going to be all about how to create a competitive grad school application. So my name is Julie Schertz, and I work as an associate director in the Global Higher Education Division at ETS. My role for the webinar today is mostly behind the scenes, but I am thrilled to introduce our brilliant presenters in just a moment. Before we do that, I do want to go over some of those sort of routine best practices for online meetings. So please, if we could just try to be very mindful of any background noise or disruptions. We are recording this, so we don't want to have any interruptions. So if you could just try to stay on mute when you don't need to have your microphone on, that would be much appreciated. We're also encouraging you to try to stay till the end if at all possible, because that's when we will have the Q&A session. So our presenters are going to open it up for questioning at the end of the session. So we encourage your questions. We welcome your questions. You can ask a question any way that you feel most comfortable. So through the chat, through the Q&A. If you do it through the chat, that is going to be visible to everyone. Through the Q&A will not be visible to everybody who's logged in, or you could wait until the end, and you're welcome to speak your question with your voice as well. I also wanted to encourage you to stay to the end, because we will have a couple of special promotions for you at the end of the slide presentation. Now, I'm excited to introduce our speakers. So we have with us today Dr. Grijalva, Carlos Grijalva, and Dr. Terry Ackerman. So I'll start with Dr. Grijalva on the right here. Dr. Grijalva is a professor emeritus of psychology and neuroscience and former associate dean of the graduate division at UCLA. In his role as associate dean, Dr. Grijalva was responsible for graduate diversity programs and oversaw the graduate division offices of diversity, inclusion, and admission, and fellowships and financial services. He also served as associate dean in the division of honors and undergraduate programs in the College of Letters and Science, and the interim chair of the Cesar Chavez Center for Interdisciplinary Instruction in Chicana and Chicano Studies. And then we have Dr. Terry Ackerman on the left. Dr. Ackerman is a distinguished visiting professor in the College of Education at the University of Iowa in the Department of Psychological and Quantitative Foundations. One of his areas of expertise is test bias and differential test item functioning. Previously, Dr. Ackerman served as a department chair and Associate Dean of Research at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. So we're thrilled to have them both as ETS graduate education advisors, and I'm passing it to them now to get us started.
Great.
Thank you, Julie.
Julie.
So we are delighted that you joined us today to talk about the graduate admission process. We want you to be successful, so we at ETS as graduate education advisors have developed a webinar to help you kind of navigate through the process and to reach your goals. One of the things that I think it's important to note is that graduate school is different from undergraduate school. When you're in undergraduate school, you're acquiring new knowledge and skills. When you're in graduate school, typically the idea is to create or expand knowledge in some form, some way. It's also important, if we take a look at our colleague Maureen Grasso's comment here, you need to convince the admissions committee that you have the skills and the drive to be successful in and to contribute to the success of their program. So it's a mutual two-way street. They're there to help you succeed, but you also will help their programs become more successful in the process of doing research and publishing papers and doing other activities that are part of what you do in graduate school. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about things that you should know about applying to graduate school. The keys are to be knowledgeable, to be informed, to be well prepared. And so as the agenda lists here, we're going to be talking about the application and admissions process. Terry's going to be talking about elements of a strong application. We'll be talking about the importance of the interview and how to maximize the interview as kind of the last step of getting the faculty and the committees to get to know you a little better and to get to know what your intentions are. As always, there are issues that have to do with financial considerations, unless you happen to be very fortunate and get a free ride, which in many cases, at least in PhD programs, that happens to be the case. And then the final culminating process is closing the deal once you've actually been admitted to a program, which we're hoping that all of you do if you apply. So we're going to be taking a look at the application and the admissions process. And there are three things about the application process that we would like to mention. The first is that many of the applications have two components. And so you'll need to submit both components to upload them. Probably one of them is to the graduate school itself, and the other is the departmental part of the application. Now, some departments may have supplemental items that they want you to provide. It may be in the form of essays or any one of a number of things. Maybe it's copies of publications if you happen to be in a lab situation where actually are producing research already. Most programs, by the way, have an application fee, and these may vary from $75 or more. However, many of these programs provide fee waivers or reductions of fees, and these are for individuals who demonstrate financial need provided by a FAFSA student aid report. In other cases, programs may also give a fee waiver or reduction in fees if you are participating in programs that are directed at underserved or disadvantaged groups. And that could be McNair's programs or uh, uh, RISE. It may also be the Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers. And so keep an eye out for those particulars that have to do with fees and may be offset by waivers and so on and so forth. The second important thing is that applications are reviewed only when all of the sections are fully completed. So this is not a piecemeal process. Once you get everything together, then that's the time to go ahead and submit your applications. And the third important thing that we want to emphasize is pay attention to detail. Detail is critical. Make sure that you're following the instructions. Make sure that you're filling in the information that you're looking for. So when they do get your application, you're going to have full consideration. As you might expect, admissions to graduate school is competitive. Many of the programs have a limited number of spaces, and in some cases, some departments and programs have a very large pool of applicants. I know that in our clinical psychology program, which typically admits maybe about 24 individuals, they'll get 400, 500, 600 applications for those 24 spots. So be aware of the programs you're applying to, get some sense of how big the programs are, and again, be very careful in terms of the information that you are also providing to them. Secondly, faculty need to be selective in identifying those students that are going to fill those spots. And so when you're thinking about applying, make sure you do your homework, look at the departments, see who is in those departments, try to figure out who it is that you might want to be working with, and make some contact with them as possible. Because oftentimes when faculty members are sitting around and making selections and being in the process of reviewing the applicants, if a faculty member has already been in touch with a prospective student and gets to know that student, they're going to remember that student. And it's very likely that they're more likely to advocate for you as an applicant as opposed to someone that they don't necessarily know. And then a final process is that even though you may be a very strong applicant, oftentimes the number of students that the department or the program can admit is limited to the funds that they have available. Most programs want to fund all of their graduate students, and sometimes they're very good students that don't quite make it, not so much because they couldn't succeed in the program, but because there isn't enough money to go around. So be aware of that as well. So when we take a look at the process, faculty members are considering a number of different things that you're submitting. And of course, they're looking at your academic background, to the evaluation of your transcripts, your grades, your GRE scores if you're taking the GRE test. They're also looking at the reputation of the undergraduate institution. And here again, Terry and I really talk about biases in the process, and we understand that there could be a bias for certain institutions and other institutions, but don't let this, if you happen to be coming from a school that is lesser known, there are many other areas where you can actually shine. So don't let this be a concern to you, but this is part of what goes on in the admissions process. They're looking at who writes the letter of recommendation. They're looking at what the letters are saying or not saying about you. And again, here it's very important to start making connections with faculty members or others that might be writing letters for you. And we'll talk quite a bit more about that down the road. They're looking at the applicant's area of research interest. How good is the fit of the student with the program and the faculty members that are running the program? We'll talk about statements of purpose and personal statements, what the differences are, and what you might be thinking about when you're filling out these two statement categories. We're also going to be talking about research and work experience. And of course, there's always the English language assessment scores if it happens to be the case that you are an individual is coming from a non-English speaking country. A couple of more things that you should know. And one of them is to make sure you familiarize yourself with the departments that you're applying to. The admissions process may vary from one department to another. So make sure that you understand what it is that the departments are asking you to complete. And it may be a little bit different between one department and another department. There are also external factors that come into play. The likelihood of admissions depending on factors external to your application come into view. And one of them is the applicant pool they have that particular year, whether or not there are program goals that they want to complete that are kind of independent of the applications themselves. And so you want to be cognizant of the fact that even though you are very strong in terms of your own credentials, there are other things that often determine whether or not you get in or whether or not somebody else gets in instead of you. Faculty members are also critical. Some departments assign applicants directly to a faculty member and others wait to see who it is that they're going to admit. So again, faculty members are more likely to speak up for you if they're familiar with you and your work. And again, that goes back to the notion of making contact, finding out who's in the programs, try to align yourself with faculty members that you want to work with. And ideally, if you've made contact with them when your particular applications comes up for consideration, they can say a couple of good words about you, and maybe even the fact that they'd like to admit you because they want you to work with them. Faculty want students who can assist them in their research and their teaching efforts. And so again, that alignment process becomes really quite critical. So when you think about the entire application process, you want to present yourself as a whole package. You want to be consistent in the narrative about who you are. And one of the things that I think about is when you're applying to graduate school, think about applying for a job and think about how you brand yourself. What do you say about yourself? Things that come into play are whether or not you're going to portray yourself as steady and unflappable, whether or not you get along well with others and can work well with others. You might want to be thinking about how you're going to express your motivation to succeed. A good sense of humor is always something that one is delighted in, because we want people that we want to work with, that we happen to enjoy being around them and having their company. What's your willingness to contribute, and what's your willingness to take charge? And so these are the things you should be thinking about. So you want to showcase these personal attributes, but you also want to showcase your educational trajectories and the talents and the special characteristics. So you want to highlight your accomplishments, and these may be academic, these may be personal, they may be something tied into sports where you've taken certain leadership roles. You want to demonstrate that you are mature, responsible, that you're professional in your demeanor and how you work with people. You want to demonstrate in some way some of your interpersonal skills that make you a good team member and someone that people want to have around to work with and to be successful in. You want to show a passion for the field, and this is really key. You want to show that you're applying to that program because you really have taken an interest. You want to contribute to that field. You want to become a significant member of that field. So ideally, you want to set yourself apart from others, and you want to convince the admissions committee that they should choose you over somebody else. And the key point here is that as you're branding yourself, ideally the letters and the letter writers are going to confirm and validate the impressions you have of yourself. Are they saying things that are complementary to what you're saying about yourself? And this is really going to be part of your thought process and preparing your application. So I'm going to pass it on to Terry, who's now going to
Sure.
talk about elements of a strong application.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. So let's look at a chart that's very important. This is important because it explains what admissions committees expect to find, or where they expect to find certain information about you. In the left-hand column are the pieces of your application and what information admissions committees expect you to send in as part of your application. Across the top are the types of information that faculty are looking for. And for example, if we look at the personal statement, what is it that faculty can glean from your personal statement? Well, they can better understand your personal attributes, your work experience, your interests and passions, and also get a better idea about how well you fit with the program goals and missions. For interviews, let's look at the bottom row. From interviews, faculty can tell about your personal attributes, your work experience, your interests and passions, and also, again, your fit with the program. So this chart is very, very important. So when you're filling in or completing the different pieces of evidence in the left-hand column, keep in mind what each of those pieces is revealing about you to the faculty. Carlos, you want to go to the next? So like Carlos said, it's important to present yourself as a whole package. As far as transcripts go, send them early. And it's very important that you follow up to ensure that the transcripts have arrived. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's important to understand, and I think Carlos mentioned this, is that applications are not reviewed until all the pieces are in. So keep that in mind. Courses taken, they reflect on your program of study. How does it relate to the graduate programs you are applying to? Think about your transcripts and the courses you've taken. How do those courses relate to the field to which you're applying? They demonstrate the depth. The courses that you've taken show a progression that you've taken from introductory or foundational to the more advanced. And finally, the courses you've taken demonstrate breadth. They identify what you've taken in related fields and also in general education. Personal attributes. Strong applicants demonstrate desirable attributes, including the ability to work well with others, leadership skills, engagement, and commitment. And personal attributes, we can sort of break up where the experiences that applicants achieve outside the classroom. We can divide it into co-curricular activities and into extracurricular activities. So let's look at each of those in a little bit more detail. For co-curricular activities, it could be working in a lab, it could be an internship, it could be having some research experience with a faculty member. Maybe you worked on a journal article, maybe you presented a paper with a faculty member. So, but why is it important to do or to have research experience or an internship? Well, those experiences help you to develop your interests. They help you to identify your passion. They help you to develop your analytical, critical thinking, and writing skills. They also help you to develop the ability to organize and present your data/information in a coherent like article and such. And finally, it's important because you gain relevant experience related to your degree and career objectives. So let's look at extracurricular activities. So here are some examples of extracurricular activities that you could highlight in, say, your personal statement or your statement of purpose. These include volunteer work and community service. Maybe some of you have participated in sports and athletics, whether it's individual sport or involved teamwork. Sometimes people have been involved in professional activities, student organizations. Maybe in your undergraduate, you were involved in several student organizations that you want to highlight. Professional societies. Maybe you've joined professional society. One that's very common in my area of research is like the American Educational Research Association, where students and faculty are always presenting articles on educational research. Maybe you've been involved in community activities. Here's another thing, or another opportunity to highlight what you've done, and you can talk about your experiences and how they sort of shaped your career goals. Perhaps you've been involved in tutoring or hospitals, healthcare, and shelters. Maybe you've been involved in faith-based activities. Or also maybe you've had some commitment to diversity and inclusion. All of these, the bulleted pieces here, you should look at and review, especially when you're developing your personal statement, because they give you, can provide you with evidence that sort of help shape your career objectives. So why is it important to demonstrate leadership and engagement? Sustained commitment and focus demonstrates maturity, persistence, ability to overcome obstacles, patience, time management skills, and ability to prioritize. All of these 6 bullets are really crucial to be successful in graduate school. Ability to overcome obstacles. If you can talk about that like in your personal statement, that's really key, because faculty want to admit students that they know are going to be persistent and will be able to meet the challenges they face in the graduate program, whether it's tests, presentations, courses, and so forth. Being patient. Time management skills is also very key. Organize your time so that you're successful in all your activities. An ability to prioritize. So these 6 things are really key to success in graduate school. In any opportunity you can to provide information about these in your background, in, like say in your personal statement, will be very, very key in your application. Give a comprehensive view with the GRE test. Find out if the department or program that you're applying to requires the GRE general test and or a GRE subject test. If not, consider whether the general test or subject test scores can boost your application. You don't want to provide less information than other applicants. I know sometimes programs will say it's optional. The GRE, you can provide GRE scores if you want. Well, here's an opportunity where you can sort of go above and beyond and provide more information about your abilities, about your skills by providing GRE results. And scores on the GRE can also help balance out weaker parts of your application. Make sure before you take the general test, you familiarize yourself with it. The general test measures verbal reasoning. There's 3 parts: verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, critical thinking, and analytical writing skills. So you have a verbal reasoning test, quantitative reasoning test, and then a writing component. In all 3 of those, you will have separate scores on each of them. The GRE subject tests are in topics or in fields like chemistry, in mathematics, physics, and psychology. So make sure you check your program to see whether they require or whether it's optional for you to take the general test or subject tests. And also on the GRE website, and I think Julie might talk about this at the very end of our presentation, you can explore free and low-cost test prep materials to help you prepare for the GRE test.
Terry, if I can add something here, I think
Sure.
you know, I'm just thinking about the working college student and the fact that sometimes they and this often applies to underrepresented students where they don't have time to get engaged in research all that much. And maybe their contact with faculty is limited, so they don't get quite the stellar letters of recommendation that you want. Maybe they're coming from a lesser known school, so their application might not be quite as strong as it could be if they had other opportunities. And so the graduate, the GRE test could in fact provide a tipping point to demonstrate that you do have the capabilities to do graduate level work. So I think these are really all important things. And Terry and I spent a lot of time talking about holistic admissions and talking about how you balance out all these different elements so that no one particular element dominates, but that they all contribute to a better assessment of the applicant.
So let's talk a little bit about letters of recommendation. Ask recommenders if they have the time to write a strong letter of recommendation. Give some really serious thought about who knows you very well, and make sure you provide them with information, but it's really important to give them time to think about their experiences with you and can write a solid letter. Obviously, you have to ask them to be specific. That's why it's very, very important that the person you ask to write the letter of recommendation knows you very well, like a faculty member who you may have worked with. It may be somebody that, or a faculty member who maybe you did extra work with, or you worked in his or her lab and such. It's very important when you ask someone to write a letter of recommendation that you provide a copy of your personal statement and resume. This is really key because Carlos mentioned this earlier. You saw in one of my first slides all the pieces of information that's going to make up your application. Well, faculty, when they're reviewing applications, look for cross-validation of all those pieces. The student said this in their personal statement, but does that coincide with what the letter of recommendation, the person who wrote the letter of recommendation, does that sort of do each sort of cross-validate each other? It has to be well connected, but as a faculty member reviewing an application, if somebody says something here, I'm going to look at other parts like their transcripts, letter of recommendation, maybe their personal statement, to sort of cross-validate to make sure that I'm getting the same message from all the pieces in the application. As far as the recommender goes, give them plenty of time, say at least 2 weeks, and more time if the person is likely to be asked by other students. It's not uncommon for faculty to have to write or be asked to write several letters of recommendation. So just make sure you give them plenty of time. Secure letters from faculty in your major. That's really key. Request letters from professors and supervisors who know you and your work well. That's so key, because if I'm teaching a class and I have 50 students, it's hard for me if somebody comes up to me and asks me to write a letter of recommendation, and it's just one of 50 students, and I'm not familiar with that student. Like the only time I may have seen that student is in class. Like that student never came into my office, never talked to me. It's kind of hard for me to write a letter detailing the work of that student in the class. So it's very, very important to make sure that the people you ask are very familiar with your work in their class or maybe in their lab. After a person is sent a letter of recommendation, it's also important that you send thank yous to those people for taking the time to write the letter of recommendation. The other thing I want to comment on is if you've been out of school and you have your undergraduate degree and then you went into the workplace and now you're thinking about going back into school, into graduate school, then what you need to do is think about the people who are familiar with your work, who have seen you face challenges in the workplace, who can speak to the quality of your work. Also, things like, just like I mentioned in a previous slide about the challenges you faced and so forth. So it's a lot of times people who have finished their undergraduate, have worked for 3 or 4 years, it's hard for them to go back and identify a professor. But then what you need to do is identify supervisors, maybe directors who are very familiar with your work and can really write very explicit, very specific about your qualities, about your persistence, about your work styles and so forth. That's really key. So from whom should you request letters? And this always comes up when we talk with students. One question we've received in the past is a letter from a professor whose class in which you received an A necessarily the best choice. My answer to that is that professor is a good choice for you to write a letter of recommendation if he or she knows you very well. If they're not familiar with you, just the fact that you received an A in the class may not be sufficient for that individual professor to really write a specific letter for you. Another question, is a letter from a distinguished professor necessarily the best choice? Again, it's not the rank of the professor, whether it's a full professor or associate professor. What's important is that professor can speak about your strengths as well as your weaknesses, but can relate about how well you worked in his or her class, maybe some challenges that you faced in the class, maybe about how extra work that you did in the class. People who write the best letters of recommendation are most familiar with the students that they're writing about. And finally, this is what I mentioned just before. What if you've been out of school for a while? Well, chances are depending upon how long you've been out of school, but if you've been out of school for several years and have left or are not in contact with previous professors, think about your workplace. Who is your supervisor? Who is your director? Pick people who can really talk about your strengths, about challenges you faced, about the quality of your work, about your persistence, your work ethic. That's so key, because when they talk about that, that sort of increases the strength of your letter of recommendation, because faculty know all the challenges you will be facing when you're admitted to graduate school. So here we're going to talk about the personal statement and the statement of purpose. I'm going to talk about the personal statement, and then Carlos will talk about the statement of purpose. The personal statement provides additional information that may aid the selection committee in evaluating your preparation and aptitude for graduate study. Personal statements describe how your unique character and experiences will enable you to contribute positively and effectively to not only the department, but also the academic field. Earlier in the presentation, Carlos talked about the difference between undergraduate and graduate education. In graduate education, you are expected not only to take classes, but also contribute to the department, department activities, and also to the academic field, to present at conferences, to perhaps work on journal articles, but you will be expected to contribute, again, not only to the department, but also to the academic field. That's a big difference from undergraduate. And finally, the personal statement helps explain challenges or barriers that you have faced in your pursuit of higher education and how you overcame them. These three things are really key, like I mentioned in the previous slides, of the type of information and where you can get information to put into your personal statement. Here's a quote from me. The personal statement is just that. It's personal. It should be specific to you, your goals, your experiences, and your personal attributes. Again, the purpose of the personal statement provides you with an opportunity to showcase your passions, your personality, and your potential. And the benefit of the personal statement is it actually puts a face to more objective and quantitative credentials. It reminds the faculty who are reviewing your application that you are an individual with unique experiences, backgrounds, and points of view. Here are some, it's really important when you are filling out the application and are asked to submit a personal statement, that you look at what the faculty wants you to write about. Here are two examples of prompts or directions or guidelines for personal statements, and these are from UCLA. So let's look at these. The first one says, are there educational, personal, cultural, economic, or social experiences not described in your statement of purpose that have shaped your academic journey? If so, how? Have any of these experiences provided unique perspectives that you would contribute to your program, the field, or your profession? Another prompt from UCLA, describe the challenges or barriers that you have faced in your pursuit of higher education. What motivated you to persist, and how did you overcome them? What is the evidence of your persistence, progress, or success? I can't emphasize it enough. It is so key to look at the guidelines and that you write to the guidelines, because sometimes what happens when I read personal statements, the student really didn't answer or respond to the guidelines that were provided. And as a result, when I'm reviewing the application materials, it's hard for me to compare this student to other students who actually followed the directions. So it's really, really key that you understand the directions for the personal statement. And finally, I just want to make sure that you can explain how you can contribute to the diversity imperative. Be able to articulate what is meant by the diversity imperative. Identify ways in which you have engaged in service, efforts, or programs to increase participation of groups historically underrepresented in higher education. Universities with a diverse staff and diverse student body have an inclusive work culture and are more successful and better equipped for the future. Diversity leads to new ideals and perspectives that encourage respect, fairness, and innovation. And here you see the quote from Carlos: diverse perspective are viewed as a catalyst for innovation and solving societal problems. So keep this diversity and the experiences you've had with diverse groups that you can talk about, whether it's in your personal statement or perhaps in an interview. Keep that in mind. So now I'm going to turn it back to Carlos to talk about the statement of purpose.
Okay, so in the statement of purpose, you basically are saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, it's kind of a funny thing. And why? And so in that statement of purpose, Terry already highlighted the personal statement, which is kind of the other experiences and attributes you have. But here you want to be very specific and you want to help the selection committee to understand what your academic and research interests are and to evaluate them in terms of how well you fit into the proposed program of study. So here you want to explain why you've chosen the field and what the relevant academic, research, or professional experiences are that you have to make you a strong candidate. And you want to include information that demonstrates subject-specific knowledge or general skills that you have acquired. So we talked about this transcript and how you start from foundational to advanced. You also are looking at how you've honed your particular interest, but have also added to that by having experiences that are aligned in some way. So you want to make sure that you're giving them the information that really attracts them to your application. So what is the statement of purpose and what is the faculty looking for in that statement? And again, what you want to do is craft the statement so that they understand that you are in good alignment with the program. You want to write the statement specifically to that particular program. And again, in the very beginning, we talked about the fact that programs, even though they may be in the same discipline, may have some variations. And so you want to make sure that you're following that process. Our colleague, Maureen Grasso, said, once you've drafted the essay, let it sit for a day before and return to it. So part of it is, this is going to be a very important part of your app. They all are, but this is also key because you're telling them why you want to be in that program and why they should pick you. So you want to think about what you're writing, let it rest, go back, do some editing until you really feel that you've written the strongest statement you possibly can. We also recommend that you take it to a writing center or let a faculty member critique it so that you have a different pair of eyes that may catch things or let you know that you've really written a stellar statement and go with it. You want to accent the positive, and if there are things that have happened that have impeded your progress, you might mention it. You might explain maybe some of the negative things that have happened, but you don't want to dwell on it. Failure is part of the process. And so what you want to show is if there was something that was impeding it, what did you do to overcome it? And that's part of the personal statement process, but it also might come up in the statement of purpose. So you want to tell them who you are and why graduate school is the right choice for you to make in that particular department. So in writing your statement, you want to be consistent and coherent in your ideas. You want to make sure you have a solid beginning, middle, and end. You want to explain in a positive, mature way anything unusual in your academic journey, whether it was hiatuses, jobs, maybe you transferred, maybe you changed majors, things that were part of your developmental process that brought you where you are today. The important thing here is the expectations of what you write and what you write in the statement of purpose is going to vary from field to department. Faculty reviewers are going to be looking for different things in your statement. And of course, there's a difference in how you write them, whether you're in the STEM fields or the social sciences, whether you're applying to an academic program or a professional program. The important thing is that you want to be very specific and sophisticated in your writing because this is a level that is going to be at a higher level than the kinds of things you've written before. The statement of purpose should demonstrate familiarity with the graduate program and the university that you hope to attend. So why do you want to study there? Why are you applying to that particular program or school? What have you done that makes you a good fit in that particular graduate program? So you want to be specific to the program and the institution. So here's an example. I'm interested in your program because many of the faculty members at your university are conducting research in areas of my methodological, theoretical, and geographic interests. For example, Dr. A has conducted research with coastal populations in the Pacific, including the Chumash. This might be a person applying to a program in cultural anthropology or geography or sociology or political science, but it really captures the essence that that program is something that has the people that are attracting them to that program. You want to avoid simplicities and generalizations like, I love to read, I love to learn, I love to school, I want to make a difference. Those are platitudes and they're okay, but they don't really give any additional information that the faculty are seeking. You also want to demonstrate depth of the experience and of what you hope to pursue and why. So here are some examples. I've nurtured a sustained interest in wanting to know the details of life. They could be someone applying to a biology program or a developmental psychology program. Here's another example. Mathematics, the language of the universe, has enthralled me since I was first introduced to algebra in the 6th grade. Here's another one. I know college was definitely going to be a challenging experience. Fortunately, the support I received from my family empowered me to pursue my goals. I decided to trust my talents and embark on the journey of college. Although I've had my ups and downs, my determination and desire to succeed have helped me persevere. So those are giving you some sense of the passion that the individual has and why they've chosen that field. You want to compose a strong, captivating first sentence and paragraph. And here are some examples or others that certainly would capture that idea. The first, I learned that mechatronics not only can entertain millions of people, but can also help improve the quality of life of those with disabilities. Another one, I wish to apply numerical methods to better understand the problems we face with energy, climate change, and natural disasters. So here's the application, let's say mathematics, to particular problems that we face. Here's another one. The opportunity to one day change the living standards of thousands of people suffering from chronic joint deterioration fuels my desire to conduct research in the biomedical field. My undergraduate research projects have reassured and strengthened my decision to pursue a PhD in biomedical engineering with an emphasis on medical devices. Such a degree will enable me to participate in the development of new technologies and to become a role model for first-generation minorities. So that's a very powerful statement as far as I'm concerned. You want to state what you have to offer and convince the department or program that you are qualified. So what makes you different? How do your interests match the faculty research, which is something we've emphasized on several occasions? Mention the faculty by name. And again, going back, familiarizing yourself with who's on the faculty, try to make contact with them. I know that when I was looking at applications, if I saw my name in the application, I was sure to take a look at that particular student more closely, especially if I was looking for students to join my lab. So name dropping is a good thing as long as you've done your homework. And make sure that the faculty that you're interested in working with are still in the department or the institution, because faculty do retire, they do get recruited away to other institutions. So make sure that the information that you're providing is current with the faculty that are there. You want to express an interest in a particular topic or period, but you also want to show that you're open to other areas that are related to that. So here's an example of a statement. I wish to pursue a PhD in biomedical engineering with an emphasis in mechanical devices to initiate a patient-centered design focus in the field of medical device design and development. By designing with the patient in mind, I can develop customized medical products for a wide variety of users, patients with special needs, clinics in developing countries, or average everyday users. So that's a pretty broad sweep, but also shows that they're flexible in terms of the direction within that field that they might pursue. You also want to demonstrate understanding of the methodologies. What are the methodologies used in that particular field? Are they qualitative? Are they quantitative? Are they narrative? Are they exploratory? So you want to make sure that you identify things that are tied into the techniques or the skills that people use in that particular field. If you're doing something like Terry, where you're doing analytics and math models and things that have to do with um, that particular domain, psychometrics, for example, then you want to make sure that you're looking at whether or not you have at least the basics to pursue that particular field. All right. Finally, in your statement of purpose, again, you want to have things that reflect you. There may be parts that if you've included in your statement of purpose, but or a personal statement, but you don't need to divulge your full life story. You want to discuss relevant academic, volunteer work, employment experiences. You want to show that you have preparation for in-depth research, but you also want to portray yourself. And again, these are the personal attributes, the fact that you are respectful, that you're coachable, identify your strengths, but don't pretend to be an expert unless you really have proven expertise in the field. Show a willingness to be taught and to learn from the faculty, also that you can receive feedback from your peers, and that you're willing to accept constructive criticism and be a good listener. And this really is part of the partnership that you develop between you and the faculty, you and other graduate students, you and lab personnel, you and the department. If you are talking about your research and you're citing sources, make sure that you cite them appropriately, and the last thing you need to do is plagiarize. We also, in thinking about these statements of purpose and personal statements, I'm sure Terry and I have had conversations with our colleagues about artificial intelligence and the fact that ChatGPT is now being used for all kinds of good things, but you also want to be cautious about using these particular kind of analytic tools to craft your statements, because the last thing you want to do is be suspected of using other mechanisms that are not truly reflective of your particular work. So you also want to describe your trajectories. What do you want to do once you get out of graduate school? How are you going to utilize your degree? And here again is a list of things that you might be thinking about. Maybe it's academia, maybe it's business, maybe it's research and development, but you'd want to tell them something about the direction that you want to take once you have completed the program. Of all things, again, we've talked about being very critical and cautious about your work writing. You don't want to be sloppy. Have someone proofread your work. Of course, we have all kinds of tools these days, spell checkers and grammatic checkers, but make sure that have somebody else look at your work to make sure that you are portraying yourself in the very best light you can. And speaking about portraying yourself in good light, Terry's going to talk about the interview.
Thank you, Carlos. So let's talk a little bit more about the interview. First of all, what's the faculty motivation in interviewing potential students in their program? And here we have two quotes from faculty members. First, if I'm going to spend over $160,000, that's in terms of scholarships, stipends, maybe travel to conferences and so forth, and the next 5 years or 6 years with this person, you can be sure that I'm going to want to interview this person. Here's another quote. I want to know what's motivating them to pursue the field they are applying for, and something about their persistence, grit, and determination to better understand their potential to be successful in our graduate program. So the purpose of the interview, there's 4 elements, and we'll go through each of the 4. First, to better understand you. Second, to recruit you, to encourage you into their program. Third, to offer an admission. And fourth, to facilitate you learning more about them. So let's look at those. in a little bit more depth. Let's talk about the rules for the interview. First of all, you interview faculty and students. Rule 1 and Rule 2 sort of are opposite sides. You interview faculty and students, they will be interviewing you. It's really important to understand that during the interview, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way conversation. So it's very important to make sure that you ask questions, that you, the conversation is not just one-sided. They want you to ask questions, maybe about the program, about courses and things like that. So it's a two-way street. So the first two rules are really key and emphasize that. Rule 3, you're always at the interview. So for example, if after leaving a faculty member's office and you're going to lunch, even though you think, okay, I survived the interview in the faculty's office and now I'm going to lunch and I can sort of relax, well, you're always on the interview, whether it's in the faculty member's office, whether they're in lunch, whether they're giving you a tour of campus, you're always at the interview. And the fourth one is very difficult, but just relax, tell the truth, and be yourself. One thing I want to mention about interviews is because when we interview with faculty, first of all, in the undergraduate, you know, students are always afraid to approach faculty, to go into their office and such. And when you interview for grad school, now you're at an even higher level. And faculty members just want to find out more about you. What makes you tick? They will not ask you to give me the proof of this theorem, or could you please derive this particular formula for me? No, not at all. What they're going to be asking you, they just want to find out about you. What makes you tick? Why are you applying for the program? So the fourth rule, as much as possible, just relax. Make sure you tell the truth. Make sure you look at all before the interview. Make sure you review all your application materials. What did you say in your application? Because a lot of times they're going to want to sort of, again, cross-validate. Well, you said this, and now you're talking about this. So make sure you're familiar with your application materials, but for all intents and purposes, just relax and be yourself. Who are the interviewers? They could be faculty from a particular lab. They could be faculty in the graduate program. It could be current graduate students. This is so key. A lot of times when we are interviewing applicants, we will have them talk with the graduate students, people who are in our program, who are working their way through the coursework and such, because we want to get their perspective. Do they think the student who is applying to the program will be successful? But it's also your opportunity to learn about the program. A lot of times students are a good source of information. They will tell you about certain faculty. They will tell you about the challenges of the coursework. They will tell you about the challenges they faced in the program and such. So remember, the interview is a two-way street, but graduate students are a key source of information for you to learn from that you probably wouldn't learn interviewing with a faculty. Could also be university or department directors or administrators, and it might even be alumni. Before the interview, this is so key. Carlos talked a little bit about this. Familiarize yourself with the department, school, and the community. Ask for a list of questions maybe that they might ask you. Ask for a list of individuals you will meet. As soon as I have a list of individuals, if I'm going to interview, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the website and I'm going to learn everything I can about those faculty members. What courses do they teach? what is their area of research, what presentations, maybe journal articles, so that during the interview, I could sort of mention about their particular research. Why is it that, what about their research, their journal articles, maybe their presentations, that really caught my interest? That really piques the interest of the faculty member when you can cite or ask questions about their particular field. Ask for what's appropriate to wear. Obviously, you want to dress appropriately. Email any contact that you may have with the program. You may know somebody, maybe a student in the program, and you can say, okay, I'm going to interview with these 4 people. Can you tell me something about them? Also, like I just mentioned, review your application packet, because they're going to ask you questions based upon what they've read in your personal statement, statement of purpose, your transcripts, and so forth. The other thing I want to say is that if I'm going to the interview, I'm going to have a list of questions to ask. I'm going to ask them maybe about the courses. What's the sequence of courses? Is there an opportunity for me to present at conferences? Is there an opportunity for me to travel to conference, to present at the conference with other students, with faculty members? I would develop a list of questions ahead of time, even about the community. Where do graduate students usually live? How difficult is parking on campus? Just make a list of questions, because remember, the conversation or the interview is a two-way street. And having the questions really shows them that you've done your homework, that you're prepared. During the interview, maybe you want to ask to see the lab. Make sure you want to see the classroom space. Maybe see a typical classroom. Maybe sit in on a class. That's a great opportunity to see what it's like in a grad class. Sit up and smile. Make sure you speak clearly. It's a conversation. That's very, very key, with a purpose, and be ready to participate. It's a two-way conversation. I cannot emphasize that enough. Be ready to listen and ask questions. And sometimes maybe there might be a virtual component, or there might be a hybrid where you do part of the interview online and then you go to campus and meet with another group of people, or to take a tour or such. But asking questions is very, very key. I just wanted to cite what John, or read what John said. Asking questions shows that you understand that the interview is mutual. That's a two-way conversation. After the interview, make sure you write thank you messages to all the people that you interviewed with. Ask for feedback, and also follow up with any additional information requested during the interview. A lot of times, certain questions, when you leave and you start maybe driving home or whatever, you may think, oh, I should have found out about this, or I wonder about this. Well, when you thank them, maybe you could ask them another follow-up question to show that you're very interested in the program.
So you've submitted your application, you've done all this work, you've talked to the faculty, they've sent in letters of recommendation, and ideally have all these offers in hand for admissions. And now it comes the time to be thinking about how are you going to support yourself. And so we're looking at financial considerations, and there are a number of sources of funding that come into play. There are fellowships and scholarships that are sponsored by the university or the department, or there may be external fellowships that are part of the availability for students in different areas and different fields. Many of these fellowships vary in terms of the amount and the amount of time. There may be certain conditions of the award, but these are really the kind of the main source of funding for many students. Now, in certain departments, depending on the program, Students are funded either through research assistantships, sponsored by grants, by the faculty, by the department, or teaching assistantships. And this really becomes a livelihood for many of the students, that they're not only students, but they're also acting as teaching assistants in classrooms along the way. There are also federal agencies like the National Science Foundation, or private institutions and societies that also provide some funding. So you want to make sure that you really look at the financial aids office, look at the department. They may have a list of different additional sources of funding you can apply to. The important thing is to be thinking about multi-year packages. Some are only support for 1 year, but in most cases, certainly in PhD programs, they're going to be offering multi-year packages. And in fact, in most cases, if you're into a PhD or doctoral program, they are going to be offering you, making you an offer, competitive offer, for you to go to their program rather than somebody else's program. The other thing you should know is that many of these fellowships and other funds are for the academic year and don't necessarily always include the summer. So you want to be aware of the fact that there may be special summer research programs that you can apply to, but be thoughtful about the 12 months of the program and not just the 9 months or whatever for the program. In some cases, students do have to apply for loans. Many PhD programs try to fund all of their students as best they can. Master's programs are a little different, and sometimes they'll offer funding, sometimes they won't. So you may have to resort to other sources of funds, including loans. Unfortunately, loans have to be repaid. And so ideally, you're going to be able to find some other sources that are not necessarily in the nature of a loan. What the financial support includes are various things depending on the award. It could be a stipend, a monetary stipend that you can use for a variety of different things, including travel. It could be tuition payment. It could be medical coverage, or it could be housing allowances. In most cases, if you take a teaching assistantship, oftentimes it not only includes a salary, but it also includes a tuition remission or tuition cancellation and health insurance. So even though it does require work, it also does provide a package that is very helpful for you to be able to get through the program. So other considerations, you want to make sure that if they're offering you an award, that you get the award in writing. Plan for the unexpected. Sometimes things do happen and you're expecting an award and it's not coming through. And so what are the other alternative sources you might have to make sure that you can fund yourself? And again, different awards are available at different times and in different amounts. So always make sure you're checking back to see if there's maybe some other award or some other fellowship that you might apply to that you hadn't considered along the way. So I'll pass it on to Terry to close the deal.
So closing the deal, I'll go through this a little bit quickly because I want to give some time for questions at the end. So it's very important to identify your priorities. You have academic priorities, location. Do I go away to school? Am I in state, out of state? Do I work at a job and then at night take classes? Is there academic mentoring available? Is there life mentoring available at the university? Is the atmosphere in the program that I'm applying to, do I feel comfortable with it? Is it, do I feel comfortable with the faculty? Are these students the type of students that, you know, I can take classes with and enjoy my graduate program with? Will there be teaching opportunities? Will there be research opportunities? And finally, you have, of course, you have financial opportunities. And I just want to mention something that is sort of new that's coming out in July. That's really important for people to going into grad school to consider. The Department of Education is stepping up with new regulations designed to hold institutions accountable for the cost of their programs and alumni career choices. It's called the Financial Value Transparency Framework. And the Department of Education will publish information about the cost of attending a program, average student loan debt, average earnings of alumni 3 years after graduation. So this is going to start in July. So it's really kind of key to keep your eye open for that. Universities will be required to direct students to this information prior to enrollment. So that's really key. It's coming out, like I said, in July, and it's with the Department of Education. Closing the deal. The deal involves two parties, obviously. The department makes you an offer, and then you accept or decline the offer. Offer times vary. There may be strict time limit for a response. Please get back to us. Make sure you observe that. Prepare to make the decision. Think about, especially if you're applying to a couple of programs, maybe prioritize which program. If you receive multiple deals from different programs, make sure you prioritize. So this is my first choice, this is my second choice, and so forth. April 15th is a pretty hard and fast deadline that's pretty common across programs for students to get back to them to accept. Before you make the decision, there's the letter, you will receive a letter of acceptance, letter of financial support, hopefully you will have a virtual and especially an in-person campus visit. Make sure you review the costs and benefits like Carlos was talking about. Make sure you review your priorities, especially if you're going as an individual back to grad school, or if you have a family or a situation that you also have to balance between your graduate school responsibilities and your family responsibilities. Talk to at least one mentor or friend about your decision. I think that's really key. Bounce it off. And what do you think? Do you think I'm making the right decision? To close the deal, email your acceptance. Make sure you mention in your acceptance any financial assistance that you were offered to make sure that you're understanding the financial aid package that they're going to offer you. Make sure you email thank you to the faculty and also to the staff, and then start making moving plans. In moving, you have two things. You have obviously the physical move to the campus, but you also have to have, now your life is changing. Now you're going to be in grad school, you're going to be a graduate student. So obviously there's an emotional move as well. After you've closed the deal, email every other graduate program that you applied to and say, okay, I've decided I'm going to go to University X for my graduate work. And so they know that to remove you from their applicant pool. And so if they made you an offer, they then can share that with another applicant. Make sure you thank them though for their offer. It's very important. Don't burn bridges. You may need or want to transfer to another university. You may have a future job at that university, or they may be your future colleagues. So it's very important not to burn any bridges.
Well, thank you all very much. That concludes the formal presentation. We're open to questions, but before we do, I think Julie wanted to talk a little bit about the potential offers that are available to you through ETS. So Julie?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to go through this very quickly. I do want to leave time for questions, and I saw that there were some. But I know not all of you will take the GRE or are planning to take the GRE anytime soon. But if you are going to be taking the GRE, we do have special promo codes for you so that you can save money off the cost of the test, as well as our GRE Mentor online test prep course. So you can see the codes here. You would just need to put these codes in at the time that you're registering, and you would just need to make sure that you register and use these codes by March 6th. to take full advantage. And let's get to the questions now. So, oh, what did I do? Sorry, I just like hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. I have seem to have lost our questions. Okay. So we do have one here. I'm trying to go in the order they were asked to be fair. So as a civil engineering major, I'm contemplating pursuing a master's degree in either engineering management or transportation engineering. Do you recommend pursuing graduate school immediately after completing my undergraduate degree? Alternatively, would gaining some work experience first be more beneficial? Or perhaps a combination of part-time grad studies and full-time employment would be advantageous. So I'm not sure which one of you would like to
Well,
tackle that.
I'll go ahead and chime in first, because actually one of the schools that I oversaw as a graduate dean was engineering, and I think any one of the three actually.
Yeah.
It just depends on where you are. Some people want to transition to graduate school right away because academics are fresh. They already are kind of in sync with that particular part of their life and their program. Other people want to gain some practical experience, and sometimes that actually helps them in their application because they're bringing into bear some real life experiences, especially if it ties into the particular field that they want to go into. So I would say whatever really helps you best and what you feel most comfortable with is probably the right choice for you.
Yeah, I'll echo what Carlos said, because I think it's up to the individual. But I think one thing that's really important is it's not pejorative or negative if you take time off and you get work experience before you go back to graduate school. I think in some cases that's a good decision, because it really helps you to identify your passions and your priorities. And sometimes going through the undergraduate program and going right into a graduate program, for some people, they can continue their passion, but sometimes their interests change or such. So before you go to graduate school, you want to make sure that the program you're applying to will help you further achieve your goals in a particular field or particular area. And you want to make sure that, yes, I can see myself, like in the statement of purpose, I can see myself 4 years from now or 3 years from now, after I do my graduate work, I want to be working in this type of position or with this type of company.
Let me just add one thing real quickly. If you decide you want to work for a while, make sure you stay in contact with the faculty that you know so that they don't forget you. Because if you're out for a few years, then you're going to be looking for people to write letters of recommendation. I've had students that want to go to med school, but they want to do a post back, but they tell me what their plans are, and they get in touch with me every few months to let me know that they're still, interested, and that way they're fresh on my mind too. So just stay in contact with people that might write letters of recommendation for you.
Okay, thanks. There's another question here about the recommendation letters. So the question is, could I ask for a reference letter from a past manager that I worked with a year and a half ago? I know time has passed, but we worked in an interesting, challenging project, and this person was my mentor. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, what you want is the people who are writing the letters of recommendation to know you very well, who can write about your qualities, all your attributes, and maybe give specific instances about challenges you faced or projects you work and how well you contributed to completing projects and such. So if that's an individual that can really highlight your strengths and such, I would certainly encourage you to use that individual to write a letter of recommendation. But make sure, that individual understands the program you're applying to, so that he can talk further about how you know, he feels the success you did in the workplace will help you to contribute to the program and also contribute to the field, and that you will be a successful student in the graduate program.
Right. Okay, there is another question here. How long before or ahead of time should I begin applying for graduate school?
Well, you should be thinking about it when you're a freshman, at least. But you know, really, I'm serious. Oftentimes you don't know whether or not you want to go to graduate school and you're thinking about it. But usually, at least when you are in your junior year, if you're serious, you should be making contact with faculty members and doing whatever it is that you think you might need to do to get into the program. Get involved in some research project or something that really gets you to partner up with a faculty member in one way or the other. So the sooner you start the process, the easier it's going to be when you start applying.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the chat or the Q&A. I don't know if we have time for one more, if anybody has speak now or forever holds your question. It looks like that's all the questions then.
I don't
Thank
know,
you all.
Susan wanted to say anything.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. And know that the conversation doesn't have to end with today, right? So we're still here. I don't know if you're anything like me, you'll walk away from today and tomorrow at some point you'll be like, I wish I would have asked that question. You know how to get in touch with us. We're here to help with this process. Please feel free to pass on the information. Keep your eye on SHPE emails for more information about some of the other programs I was talking with you about, the Future Grads Mentorship Program, as you get ready to start your applications. And thank you so much for coming tonight. And thank you to the ETS team for your willingness to do this on a late evening. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. Really great content. So thank you.
Susan, if I may, Terry, I'll impose on both of us. We always are available to talk with students.
That's right.
So if anybody decides they want to contact us directly, we're more than happy to have a conversation. Just wanted to let you know that we do this out of our commitment and our devotion to graduate education. And so please feel free if you want to contact us directly.
That's right. If any of you have any questions, I know, just like Susan mentioned, sometime tomorrow you may be thinking about something we said and all of a sudden you'll have a question or whatever. Feel free to email me or Carlos or Julie, and we'll be glad to get back to you. And it's not that we have all the answers, by no means do we, but we'll be more than happy to share our experience and give you some thoughts to maybe help solve any questions or answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you all. And we hope to see you at the next event on March the 5th. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.